should a local school district be required to carry pornographic smut material in elementary school, middle school, and high school libraries by the force of law? Well, the ACLU and one judge in particular does think so. It's a battle brewing, and it's a battle for parental rights and for the freedom of kids not to have to be exposed to this type of harmful stuff. This is a really critical discussion we're about to have. I do got to give you a warning, though, that some of the content we're going to discuss is not appropriate. I can read parts of this. Jeff Maher can read parts of this. He's the public information officer for the Elizabeth School District. There are other parts we cannot read that are so over the top that you cannot read them on public airwaves, but they want your kids' libraries to carry this. Okay? We're going to give you insight, update on this case, but I got to tell you, if you got little ones, we're giving you fair warning. This is not appropriate for young people. All right. With that said, joining me live in studios, Dan Snowberger and Jeff Maher. Gentlemen, thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show today.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be back with you.
So we've talked to you about the case. I want to give people just a real brief update or background. You gathered a bunch of parents together because you were getting complaints about books in the library. Yep. And you set about a very public effort to analyze these books to see if they're appropriate for those particular age groups, elementary, middle school, high school. Parents weighed in. Your committee analyzed these books, determined they were not appropriate. Now, you could have very easily, you had the power to go and take these books and just throw them in the dumpster and never say a single thing. But you decided, I'm going to do this in a very transparent way so that the community can weigh in. And I'm not just doing this on my own personal analysis. So you get rid of these 18 books. Then the ACLU comes around and says, no, elementary school children must have access to pornographic material, which is a crazy argument. And that somehow you're violating the free speech rights of these authors, that the library has to carry these books or some violation of their free speech. They sue you. It goes before a judge, and the judge says, you have to put these books back in. What's happened since? No. Give us an update.
Well, last Wednesday, that's exactly the order we received. We were ordered a preliminary injunction to return the 19 books that our community and our board, after thorough review, determined were inappropriate in our library, to return those to the library by yesterday evening. We appealed and asked for a stay of that order to the district judge after not hearing back from her. We appealed on Friday after not hearing back from her Monday evening. We appealed to the 10th Circuit. Finally, yesterday, we did hear from the Denver judge, who did stay her order and agree to hear the appeal and have asked the plaintiffs to respond to that by Friday. We don't know what to expect, but honestly, I'm not sure we will get much different. We asked for a hearing. The district would like to present its side of the story. We were denied that opportunity. We were denied a hearing to actually present the facts of this case. Instead, she ordered us to return the books. And so that's a little confusing. We believe in the rule of law, and there's an appellate process for a reason. Judges are not infallible. And so we certainly intend to go as far as we need to, because we believe very strongly. Our community has spoken. Public schools belong to the community. And in Elizabeth, the reason we didn't do the secret, let's throw them away, let's not tell anyone, is they're the schools that belong to the community, and the community spoke. And since that time, our community has been very galvanized behind this effort. The number of emails that I could read on air today from parents that are allowed to be read, are overwhelmingly supportive of the efforts the school district has taken. And so we're going to continue this battle because we believe it's the right thing to do for kids.
Now, I'm talking with Dan Snowberger, who's superintendent of the Elizabeth School District. I want to get into the content here in a second, okay? But I want to set up the argument that's taking place here, because what you're going to read in the media, Denver Post and others, is that you all decided to take these books out because of the sexual identity of the author, the race of the author, or the fact that you disagreed with the LGBTQ worldview, or that essentially that you're racist. That's what's coming from some of the mainstream media sources, okay? And that's what the ACLU is saying too, right?
Correct. And it's funny because when we actually, these websites and these blogs that have celebrated this ruling, when we post quotes from those books, they immediately are flagged as pornography and taken down. So even these sites that are celebrating the judge's ruling that, this is great for democracy, great that, children are finally, their rights are restored, won't even allow these quotes from the books to be posted on their websites. So,
and I think there's plenty of evidence that you have you have authors of other races in your library. It's not like you went on a mission to clear out a particular race. And then you also have books about being with gay characters and being a gay person. So there's plenty of evidence out there that this wasn't systemic across the libraries to try to clear out.
The argument out there is false. And there's clear evidence to defend that. And that's why we need a hearing. That's why we want to go before the judge and actually present the facts. Cherry picking some emails that were recorded does not state the facts.
Okay. So I'm going to reiterate this again. What I'm about to read to you are excerpts from these books that have been pulled out by the Elizabeth School District, and these are not appropriate for little ears. Okay? So if you have children, I highly encourage you to turn off the radio. And I don't want to do this because I like our listeners. But this is not appropriate for young people to hear. What you're about to hear are some of the excerpts from the books that the Elizabeth School District believes are not right for young people to be exposed to. And it makes me mad to even have to read this because it's disgusting. I froze as he pushed inside. There it is. Oh God, there it goes. It went, all right, with an audible tear. Pain mushroomed into agony, and all I could do was go stiff. This is the book Crank by Ellen Hopkins.
And that's a tame quote from that book. That's one we can read on the air without your FCC license being pulled.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know why somebody would feel like that's appropriate for kids to read.
What educational value, what standard, what Colorado standard is that supporting? That's all I'd like someone to tell me. We are an educational institution. Our job is to educate children to rewrite, do math, understand history, understand civics, understand science. Tell me where that applies.
I mean, and we're not hitting those benchmarks. We're having this major conversation about education. I went down to the teachers' union protest outside the state capitol on Thursday. They're having their funds cut. They're upset about that. We're not meeting the grades. You have the Department of Education being wound down in Washington, D.C. Big conversations about the quality of education in America right now. And the ACLU and this particular judge want that in our kids' schools.
As I said, Jeff, 40% of kids in Colorado are proficient in reading, and this is a conversation we're having. It's sad.
Wow. It's heartbreaking that this is anywhere near kids. And I want you to remind people, this is not a public library.
No,
that's an important distinction.
Yeah. Our policies in our district outline the library supports our curriculum. Our library is a resource to support the curriculum in the district. And so materials in that library should align with and support the curriculum in the district. Public school districts have swayed from their original mission. Our mission is to educate children to be successful citizens. That quote and that book that you just quoted is not going to accomplish that. And so why that book would appear on a shelf in a public school library is beyond me.
All right, are you ready for it to get worse?
There's a lot more.
Well, yeah, let me This one makes me want to throw something across the room. There's an effort by the ACLU and a judge to mandate what I'm about to read to you to be in a kid's school library. Confused at his tears and at the sticky stuff icing her hands, still Khalil pleaded, "Don't cry, Daddy. What's the matter? Didn't I love you good enough?" That's the book Identical by Ellen Hopkins. My sense is that is essentially an incestuous sexual encounter.
Exactly. That is it. And again, a tame quote from that book, one that we can read on the air, and as adults we know what they're referring to. It's sad.
I mean, the text messages are blowing up here.
Mm-hmm.
It's disgusting. I feel like I need to take a shower right now, even reading this stuff. The Elizabeth School District is facing the ACLU and a particular judge here that wants to force this content into a kid's library so that kids have access to it. Now, they are facing a massive uphill battle. The ACLU is a hundreds of millions of dollars organization, a national organization that is come down on this school district with all of its power. This is a battle that they want to win and force school districts across the country to carry these types of books and not have any choice in this. It's about control and it's about power. This small little school district is fighting back, and they need your support, okay? If you're outraged, as I am, as anybody should be, I want you to go to the Elizabeth School District webpage, elizabethschooldistrict.org. That's elizabethschooldistrict.org. And right at the top, they have a fundraising page there. I want you to go donate to them right now. This is the next in line of these battles we've had here in Colorado. You had Jack Phillips, you had Lori Smith. There's a one coming on conversion therapy. ADF's working on that one. Here's another one. We have to protect children in this state from this type of agenda being pushed on them. Okay? The parents don't want this in their schools, in the district. And you have proven that the parents don't want this. The community doesn't want this. They want to put reading and math first, not this type of agenda in the kids' schools. They have said no. They followed a process. And now this massive organization is trying to force them. This is a David versus Goliath fight. I want you to go to elizabethschooldistrict.org. At the top there's a fundraising link where you can support what they're doing to protect kids. Now, there's a third part that you had in this filing. And there's a lot more content in here, but I sent it to our operations manager, and he will not allow me to read it.
Yep.
That's how you thought what I gave you was bad. There's another level to this that our operations manager has specifically said violates FCC rules. So I want you to understand that. If I read this content on air, you would have a federal investigation into this radio station. Yep. And they want that content in the kids' schools.
Yep. Jeff, I'm going to say all the media sources out there that have covered the other side of this issue, I'd love to see them read those quotes on their air. It has been so biased in the coverage here in the Denver metro area on this story, and it is frustrating. It is very frustrating as a school district.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was doing a search yesterday of recent articles covering this from Denver media, and I can't find a single one that takes a critical look at what's inside these books. They simply post the titles that have been removed, and then they can cherry pick and put things in bold and talk about how one particular book is hailed by a certain group and that this is just a bunch of conservatives in Elbert County banning books. But none of them are actually looking at some of this stuff. And I will say that at a board meeting in the fall, we had school board members read some of this content that you're reading in the board meeting. And some of the individuals who were outspoken advocating for this to stay in the libraries got up and left before those excerpts were read. They didn't even want to hear them themselves. So I found that to be really interesting. And the fact that under no circumstances does Elizabeth School District get a fair shot in the media. And being a former media person myself, I find that to be really disturbing.
It's heartbreaking. Well, I will tell you this. Text messages coming in. By the way, we're talking with Dan Snowberger, Jeff Maher, Elizabeth School District. 1712, God bless the superintendent there and principal for these standards these people fight for. God bless them. They are advocates for the children. I think that's right. I think you guys are putting the children first. Because to your point about education requirements, how in the world does that, how does reading about a incestuous sexual encounter between a father and a daughter at all help prepare these children to become quality citizens moving forward?
Yep, exactly. And there's books about school shootings. There's books about suicide. There's books in that list about many things, planting seeds with children, about things that they shouldn't be thinking about at these ages. Again, this is a fight that we are bound and determined to take as far as necessary and ensure that we can do the right things for children and that other school districts will be able to do the same.
People asking about the attorneys that you have pulled together to help you. They're asking, have you worked with groups like Alliance Defending Freedom? I think they may become a partner later. They're kind of more on the appellate side of things, but
Correct. You've
got a great team of lawyers right now.
We do.
Talk a little bit about them and the strategy moving forward.
Sure. Jonathan Mitchell in First and 14th is a local firm is First and 14th. Jonathan Mitchell is a former Solicitor General in Texas. Yeah. He's on our team. All of them have extensive experience at the constitutional law level. We believe that's the issue here. And so they have been an amazing force for us to defend the district and to bring the key facts here. This is not settled law in the state in the United States of America. The PIO decision back in the 70s did not have a majority of justices weigh in on an opinion. It was a split decision. There were only 3 judges that signed on to a single opinion. And so this will need to go as high as necessary for us to have a clear guidance as to, do school districts and do government entities have a right to curate their libraries to ensure that they meet the values of their community. And again, nothing about these authors. These authors have written material. Some may find them appropriate at certain ages. We just don't believe they belong in a school. And again, this is no disparity towards them. Whether I would read that is not at issue here. It doesn't belong in a school library, and that's really what we're trying to get at.
You're nicer, and I get the idea that you've got to remain rather neutral. The sense I'm getting from you is that the content, while you condemn it for use of kids, you're not personally animated or motivated against these particular authors. I think there's a broken. You're writing about that stuff. You're an author that writes about that stuff.
Let me be clear.
Yeah.
I'm not reading that. That's not a book I would choose in my personal library either.
Gosh.
But again, I'm going to acknowledge that adults have their rights to read what they choose.
Right. And then the key word being adults.
Adults. Exactly. We're talking about a high school library where 14-year-olds are. That some of these books, 14-year-olds, kids who are still mini playing with Legos and playing video games, playing Minecraft.
17-year-olds shouldn't be reading that stuff either. So, look, and you guys even the ACLU, I've read the court filings. The ACLU gets mad that you even want to notify parents.
I know. Exactly. Yep.
So you created another standard that just said, hey, mom and dad, just heads up.
Yep.
By the way, your kid checked out this book, and this is another list of books that aren't nearly as bad as this. But, as a parent, like if my kid checked out, Quran, for instance, okay, well, I want to talk about what you're reading, why you're interested in that type of thing. Yep. God forbid that happens.
We call those sensitive topics.
Yeah.
Graphic violence, books that have drug or alcohol use, books that have any type of sexual content that may not be graphic. Those books are flagged as sensitive in our library collection. And when they're checked out by a student and a parent has not opted their child out of sensitive content material, their parent gets an email immediately when that book is checked out so they can have a conversation with their child. They can ask to see that book. They can determine, is that a book they want their child to read? We are empowering parents. Our district is aligned with parental rights. It is time we allow parents to raise their children, and we do the educating of children to be successful citizens in our society.
And I did want to point out that a recent Forbes article estimates that 4 million kids are being homeschooled across the United States, the majority of them coming from Christian families. And you have to wonder, why is that? Because you can't attribute that to the pandemic anymore. Yeah. Perhaps these parents feel like they've lost control over what kind of content their students are being exposed to when they send them off to school. And that's happening all across the country. And it's great to know that there is a school district in Colorado that is holding out, staying strong, keeping to our principles, just like when you and I went to school, where we could go to school, learn the curriculum, and go home and be excited about it, instead of these shady, secretive things happening inside classrooms. That doesn't happen at our school district, and I'm proud to be a part of a place that protects that.
But, and Jeff, you said it beautifully. I think at the end of the day, Jeff Maher, Public Information Officer with Elizabeth School District, and Dan Snowberger, I think people are tired of the agendas. Yeah. Right? You just feel like there's an agenda being driven all the time on your kids. You're not part of that conversation, and I feel like as a parent, sometimes you gotta like unwind whatever happened at school that day, and you're just going, Can we get to the basics of preparing our kids for success? Why is it about driving your political agenda? We got lots of text messages coming in. 5114, great job on protecting the youth. They're telling you guys they'll be exposed eventually to this stuff. But look, it doesn't need to come through the school platform. All right, we've got phone calls, we've got text. I'm talking to Dan Snowberger, Superintendent of the Elizabeth School District, and Jeff Maher, he's the Public Information Officer. A major ACLU court battle brewing in our state. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk station, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to The Jeff and Bill Show. This is just one of those hard conversations that's makes me physically sick to my stomach, okay? In studios, Dan Snowberger, he's the superintendent of the Elizabeth School District, and along with him is Jeff Maher, the Public Information Officer. And they're in a major ACLU battle, okay? They went through a whole public effort to examine the books in their kids' libraries. They had parents look at them. They had a working group. They received feedback. And they discovered a number of books that were in the library that are just wildly inappropriate. And I've been asked to give this disclaimer. This conversation we're having is not appropriate for young children. If you have young children nearby, you need to, I recommend just go away for now. This is not appropriate in a library. It's not even appropriate for us to be discussing on the radio. I hate the fact we're having to have this conversation. This stuff is so graphic and pornographic that it makes me physically sick to even talk about it. But there's a judge here in Colorado, along with the ACLU, that is working to force the hand of this school district to put these books back in the schools. Okay. Now, Jeff, what you're about to read is an elementary-aged book.
Correct.
Called George. And Again, I'm warning you. If you have young ears, turn off the radio. If this makes you mad, I'm going to give you something that you can do about it to help these guys out. But George, go ahead. Or Jeff, go ahead and read George.
So this book is, as you said, titled George, alternatively named Melissa. It's about a character who is in 4th grade who is transitioning. And this is from page 44. She immersed her body in the warm water and tried not to think about what was between her legs. But there it was, bobbing in front of her. Now keep in mind, this book was available to elementary kids as early as age 5. So when you hear this, just ask yourself, would you want a 5-year-old or 6 or 7-year-old, anyone in elementary being exposed to this? This is from page 47. So George knew it could be done. A boy could become a girl. She had since read on the internet that you could take girl hormones that would change your body, and you could get a bunch of different surgeries if you wanted them and had the money. This was called transitioning. You could even start before you were 18 with pills called androgen blockers that stopped the boy hormones already inside you from turning your body into a man's. But for that, you needed your parents' permission. In elementary schools.
I mean, it's just so reeks of an agenda being driven.
It is.
Right.
Right, and kind of a shaming, like you just saw, you see it in front of you bobbing.
Yep.
Obviously, shaming the current body that he has.
Yeah, exactly.
And keep in mind the average age that children these days are exposed to pornography is 8 to 12. That's the first time that they're exposed to it. And that goes along with the things that we can't read on the air. And there's a lot. I have a whole stack of excerpts from these books that I cannot read on the air.
It gets way worse.
It gets way
we just
worse.
wanted to show what elementary, with a 5-year-old, when you get into middle school and high school, and what we read on during the last segment was outright sexual encounter between a father and a daughter, and detailed, explicit coverage of that. It was horrible.
Yep.
So you guys go through this process. You flag these books. The parents agree with you. We want these out. And lo and behold, here comes the ACLU and a judge here in Colorado that want to force you to put it back in. If this outrages you, which it should, I want you to go to elizabethschooldistrict.org. elizabethschooldistrict.org. They are raising the funds. This is a small little school district. You heard all the cuts we're having to education. All right, now they got to go fight this massive behemoth of an organization called the ACLU in order to defend the rights to not put pornography in the kids' schools, libraries, okay? Click at the very top there, the opportunity to donate and support them, because they're going to have to build a legal team to go against it. But Dan, what are the parents saying? They're seeing this in the news. Give me a sense of what parents are responding to.
Our parents are overwhelmingly in support of us because, again, we engaged them in this process, Jeff. This was not a behind-the-scenes, a rogue board doing something against the will of the community. Public schools belong to the community, and this board engaged the community, and this board was overwhelmingly elected by the community. This wasn't a 51% election. This was a 75 to 80% election. And so parents are behind us. Here's a great example of the rights that'll be infringed upon if we must honor this original court order that's now been stayed. I would not allow my child access if they are put back in the shelves. This is an email from a parent. I do not think my children would purposely check out a book on the list, but if accidental, I think they would struggle mentally with the content as it's not age appropriate. For the same reason, I don't allow R-rated movies, and I would not want R-rated books in my library. So, I mean, this is I have been flooded with emails from parents. We keep our parents up to date on what's going on. That's on my website, on the elizabethschooldistrict.org. If you drop down to the superintendent's website, we just, this is such a major battle for us because we're not going to give in. I think last time we were here, you said, why not just do it? Why not bake the cake? Why not just put them back in? because our kids deserve better. Somebody has to fight, and we're just not going to give in. This is not something we're willing to just allow our kids to have to do this. I would rather close the library. There are lots of schools that don't have libraries.
But honestly, considering how horrible this material is, it's almost like facilitating child abuse. I'll be honest.
Agreed.
And I understand why you feel that way.
Agreed.
Why it makes me sick to read this on air. It feels like you're facilitating child abuse.
Well, and the hypocrisy of the organizations that are celebrating the ruling and then refusing to allow posts of people who put the quotes of the books and calling them pornographic. Hypocritical, how hypocrisy at its best. It's so frustrating.
And if I have time to talk a bit more about the media coverage on this issue. Yeah. So just to give the listeners and viewers a background of my career, I spent 20 years in the media. I was an anchor, a reporter for NBC, ABC, CW affiliates across the country. I started off as an intern and writer at 9 News locally. I went to school at Metro State, graduated, and then had this great career, most recently the host of Wake Up with CW in Las Vegas. So when I worked in journalism, and it seems like a long time ago, considering how the standards have changed, but it wasn't that long ago, you wouldn't air a story if you didn't get both sides. And the other day, I was explaining to a high school student what a pager was. I said, we had a pager back then. You'd clip it to your belt, and when my parents wanted to get a hold of me, they'd call this number. It would beep or vibrate. I'd call it back on a payphone, and then I had to explain what a payphone was. I feel like if I had the media in a room right now, I'd have to explain the same way to them how journalism is supposed to be. You're supposed to present both sides. You're supposed to be analytical and not be biased and not push an agenda. But you can see in these stories that's exactly what's happening. And it's extremely disappointing. And I did see this latest survey from Gallup about Americans' trust in the media.
Right, it's low.
Okay, so it has sunk to the lowest point in more than 5 decades. Just 31% of respondents in Gallup's latest survey on the topic said that they trust the mainstream media a great deal or a fair amount, while 36% said they don't trust the media at all. If that was a term paper and Dan was grading it, it would be an F-.
Well, I mean, you guys you're fighting a major fight. We're happy to come alongside you. And in fact, we're getting text messages. People are donating to you right now. Rob in Tennessee, thank you so much. $100 to the Elizabeth School District. These guys right here, Dan Snowberger, Superintendent, Jeff Maher, Public Information Officer, Elizabeth School District, up against the ACLU that wants to force them to put pornographic material in these kids' libraries. They are standing strong and saying, not on our watch. That's child abuse. We are going to defend the rights of our parents, and we're going to protect our kids, and we're going to get back to what education is really all about. And it's not about these agendas being driven. I want you to go to elizabethschooldistrict.org, elizabethschooldistrict.org. Right there at the top, you can donate and support to them. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show. Welcome back to The Jeff and Bill Show. I got Dan Snowberger and Jeff Maher in studio. They're with the Elizabeth School District fighting against the ACLU, shockingly, to keep pornography out of kids' libraries. I don't even know, it has to be a fight. Goodness gracious. Let's go to the phone lines. Rod Littleton, good morning. You're on The Jeff and Bill Show.
Good morning, gentlemen. They're okay with having this pornographic literature in schools. The schools monitor what kids do online at school on their school-owned devices. Why not open that up and then let's put in Playboy and Penthouse Forum? It does the same thing. It gives kids a chance to go in secret and explore what they want to explore.
That's a really good point, Rod. I'll let Dan respond.
Rod, we're required to have a SIPA filter, Child Internet Protection Act filter on our internet. We could not email these quotes in our email system because of the content of these books. So the federal government requires we have a filter. We can't even send these because of that that filter, but we are supposed to have these on the shelf. So exactly a perfect point. Thank you so much.
You bet, guys. Good luck. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rod, great call. Really appreciate it. I think parents get this. I think most people get this. This is not right for this agenda-driven pornography, smut content to be in kids' schools. You guys aren't banning books. You're not saying that parents can't buy these books for their kids if, God forbid, I don't know why you would, but you want to buy this for your kid. It's not like you're banned from doing it. It's just saying this shouldn't be accessible in a kid's library. Incestual sexual relationships between a dad and a daughter and the graphic nature of it shouldn't be in a kid's library. This is a big battle they're going to face, and they need your help. I'm standing with them. Go to elizabethschooldistrict.org, elizabethschooldistrict.org right now. Donate. Help them fight for parents' rights and the protection of children in our state. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.